Gilmour. The following material may not be suitable for all listeners. Listener discretion is advised.
What in the hell?
1100.
Welcome back. Joining the program this evening by Tom Harkness, who's written extensively for the Sun newspapers, the Universe Bulletin, as well as periodicals for Xavier University, and John Carroll University is a political analyst, graduated from Xavier University with a BA in English, attended the University of Dayton Law School, and you're the Director of Advancement and Alumni at St. Ed's.
True enough.
All right, and we've been discussing anything and everything, politics, the shuttle.
We have been around the board.
Anything and everything.
Bring it in.
Yep. Phone number here, 578-1100 in the 216 area code, or toll free 888-723 WTAM. Is your name Kruder?
Yeah, hello?
Howdy, you're on the air.
Yeah, I was just talking about, I heard you talking about, Mark Johnson and Tom Evans, and he said that,
Who? What? Are you listening to the same station?
Yeah.
Did we mention any of these names? Tom, did we mention?
I don't know who. I know who Tom Evans is, but I don't think we were talking about him on the radio.
Sir, have you been drinking?
Where do you know Tom Evans from?
I play golf with him, but I don't think we're talking about the same guy.
No?
No, sir. No, sir. I don't believe we were.
Well, Herfnick.
Have you been drinking?
Huh?
Have you been drinking?
Yeah, water.
Okay. Well, you just sounded like you were hitting the hard stuff.
With hops and barley?
Hard stuff? No, I don't.
I think maybe you're listening to another radio. What station are you listening to?
89.3.
There you go.
You're on
Kent State, the pride of Kent State.
You're on the wrong station. Toll free, you're on the big one.
Rick, did you recently discover a reefer or something, man? You're way off the deep end, dude.
Now, how's that? Hello? 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 The last sound of tuna hears before they close the can. Hang it in my ear, will ya? Gone off the deep end. Why have I gone off the deep end?
I think you're in the shallow end still. I think you're doing just fine.
I think I'm in the kiddie pool, to tell you the truth, from these phone calls. Don't we get any quality phone calls anymore here?
Oh, I like the Al Sharpton guy. I hope he'll call back.
Well, Al Sharpton has no credibility. And have you ever heard the Al Sharpton story about how he allegedly got started in his little career?
No, this I don't know.
Well, he was in charge of his church, obviously, the Reverend Al Sharpton. And every time something would happen in the black community in New York, he would call the TV stations and the radio stations, and they'd put his name down on the Rolodex and say, we'll get back to you. Well, they never got back to him until, lo and behold, his own church got firebombed, and then who are we going to call? And the lazy people in the newsrooms, the radio stations and TV stations in New York had the name of Al Sharpton, and then all of a sudden, I was thinking, yeah, and Hitler didn't burn the Reichstag either, huh?
Well, I suppose that's how it happens. You fall into stuff, but the guy, it's almost as bad as Jerry Springer being considered in Ohio for a Democratic run. How can we possibly be scraping the bottom of the barrel with these people who have absolutely no sense in their head?
Well, Jerry Springer is probably a little bit smarter, obviously, than he lets on.
Oh, he's incredibly bright. He was in Cincinnati when I was at school. He was a broadcaster, very bright guy. Did the little spiel at the end of the show that he has now. He did
the final thought.
He did Springer's final thought on the news. It was a little more reasonable than I slept with my final thought about I slept with my grandmother, that kind of stuff that he does now. But it was still the same stick. And he had been a city councilman, and he had a fair modicum of respect, and he just shot it.
I believe you're probably right. I don't think he has a lot of credibility. He fell into the not distancing himself even on the program enough from the guests, and fell into the funny man role, that sort of thing. And it does take away some credibility.
You don't have to do that. You don't have to denigrate what you're doing if it's a talk show into that cesspool. You don't have to be Oprah Winfrey, but you don't have to completely, fall into the muck.
Well, I don't know.
You got midgets on. Anytime you got midgets on, that's like a barometer. You're going in.
Wait a minute. No, somebody's got to do it.
What, have midgets on TV?
Sure. He was thinking, well, it worked for Howard Stern. Why won't it work for me? And look at how much money he makes. That's what he wanted to do. He decided he was going to make as much cash as possible, cash in and take the dough, and that's what he did.
Well, then, he chooses money over fame. Wealth over fame. I guess it's a good thing, but credibility-wise, he's out the door.
Yeah, the show does have a bit of a content problem.
Oh, no more Yankee, my wanky. The donga need food.
Jake in Barkeyville, you're on the air.
Hey, interesting show, Mr. Gilmour.
Well, thank you.
You guys mentioned the Bilderbergers and whatever, everything that goes along with that, the Trilateral Commission, the Masons run the world, the Jews run the world. Since you have a political person there, I would like to ask him, who is running the show?
Well, I don't have any evidence of the fact that the Masons are running the show. The Skull and Bones thing, it's pretty amazing when a son can follow his father in 2 terms into the presidency. I think there's a lot of credence for people being concerned. I don't know anything beyond that. I don't think anybody knows anything beyond that. Who's going to be talking about it?
I mean, when you look at people like who was responsible for NAFTA and GATT and the Radio Deregulation Act of 1996, and
Democrat.
So you look at the
alleged Democrat.
Yeah, you look at the political spectrum here, Republicans and Democrats, and it's a little hard to try and when you listen to a speech like the State of the Union, where they're on both sides, he's rocking on the fence. He's trying to say something that everybody wants to hear.
What do you think, sir? Who do you think is in charge of the world?
I have no idea. I'm searching, but all I see is, let's take the speech. Now, the speech is just an issue to make everybody feel good. Yes, he did say non-Republican issues, but that's just a speech. They're both for NAFTA and GATT. They're both for open borders, letting the illegal aliens in and keeping them in. Every couple of years, they have to come out and say, well, if you were here for a couple of years, you can stay. And Bill Clinton did it. Now George Bush is doing it. It's cheap labor. With that issue, I'm fighting against everybody. Big business, big government,
so you're a labor guy.
Well, it's not that. I'm an American, and I see this as a bad thing. You guys were talking about, how are we going to pay for everything? Do you realize if we just stopped the people at the border, we could pay for so many things? 10% of California's welfare goes to illegal aliens. In April, if you're an illegal alien that's been here for 5 years, you're allowed back on the food stamps. That's George Bush's idea. Bill Clinton did the same thing. Republicans and Democrats have the same goal. Now, they might go about things differently, say the gun issue, the abortion issue. There's the difference. People say there's not a dime's worth of difference between the two. I think there is a dime's worth of difference. The problem is there's only a dime's worth of difference between the two.
What bothers me is if you think that somebody runs the world, well, then somebody made sure that George Herbert Walker Bush got elected to try and do their bidding, and somebody then had to make sure that Bill Clinton got elected and reelected, and then somebody had to decide that Al Gore did not get elected. You know what I'm saying? I mean, if somebody is pulling the strings, then they have to be able to rig elections and then put in whoever they want to do their bidding.
I think there's a pool of people that you can pick from that are exactly the same. Dick Gephardt, Al Gore, George Bush, who's that nut job? John McCain. He might have been a little different, but on the major issues, on the bad issues, he's the same thing. In his home state, the state legislature voted to have the National Guard put on the border. Did they do it? No. It's just ridiculous to me. The countries you mentioned earlier, Portugal, Spain, Italy, go down that list. Well, 5 of those countries got together and put their navies together. They're part of the European Union, that liberal bastion, to say it nicely.
Yes.
They put their armies and militaries together. They're putting a fleet in the Mediterranean to stop illegal aliens from coming into their countries. Why? Because they're destroying their countries. Why don't we care about it? Why aren't we talking about it?
Well, I'll tell you what. I'm going to have to move on here, Jake, and I appreciate the phone call.
Thanks, guys.
Hey, you're more than welcome. Get into that after the break. I've got an article right in front of me. It says from INS, 7 million illegal immigrants in the U.S. Now, what I'm wondering is, who's counting them? If they're counting them, why aren't they turning them in? You guys are illegal. Who goes out and counts all these people? And that's a genuine problem in this country, illegal immigrants. I mean, yeah, I know, give us your tired and your poor and your huddled masses and all that. Give us your people that came in here from poop factories around the world that are third world nations that, as far as the people in control say, they can just all get AIDS and die.
Everybody was an immigrant, except if you're Native American. Everybody was an immigrant at one point.
You know what? I thought about having I'll tell you what. This is a little tease. I've got this great idea. A great idea for everyone who's in this country, who's worried about the future of this country, after these important words on The Big One.
Rick Gilmore.
Okay, so what am I guilty? What am I guilty of sinning?
On News Radio WTAM 1100.
Guilty of being an a-hole. Interrupt people constantly. Speaking of that, pitchers and catchers report to spring training on February 14th. Baseball's just around the corner. You can hear the Indians versus the Pirates live from Winter Haven on Friday the 28th of February. How about that at 1? The first of 20 games, of 20 exhibition games on the radio. Your home of the tribe is News Radio, WTAM 1100, and your triple Doppler forecast from TV3 forecaster Eileen McShay. Tonight, cloudy with some rain or drizzle. Out to the west, a low near 30. Tomorrow, some rain in the afternoon, upper 40s. Currently, 33 degrees in Cleveland, 33 degrees. Joined in studio by political analyst Tom Harkness, and I told you before, and if you're listening, and I'm sure you stuck around because it's a tease, I have a great plan for Americans. We're worried about terrorist attacks. We're worried about 7 million illegal immigrants in this country. We're worried about the ability to travel safely. We're worried a lot in this country.
Yeah.
We worry constantly. We're always looking over our shoulder now. Where's Osama bin Laden hiding? And you know what? I think it's time for Americans, go home. That's my new campaign. Americans, go home. Go to where you came from to begin with, all right? If you're from Ireland, how safe would it be in Ireland right now? I'll take my chances. How about Scotland? Would I have to worry about a terrorist attack in Scotland? You go back to Italy, you're going to have to worry about a terrorist attack? Well, yeah, you have to worry about terrorist attacks anywhere. But I thought the idea, maybe we should just go home. Maybe America's turning into a country that we didn't want to come over to. Our ancestors wanted to come over here, but if you can live the American life, and I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to win the Mega Millions or the Super Lotto, and I'm going to take my money, and my producer says, no, he's going to win it. But that's all right because he already told me, and I'll do the same deal with you, Nate. I'll give you $1 million if I win. How about that? A big thumbs up, and I'll pay Carmen Angelo. I'll pay off his mortgage. Nate gets $1 million, and you get a thumb up the backside. Hey, paying your mortgage. Anyway, you know, if you had that kind of money, you took $5 million and you went to, say, Costa Rica. It's like having $50 million. And it's a democracy. And it's safe and beautiful and all that, and you could live on the beach and stick your toes in the sand, and you know, occasionally I wouldn't have a Corona. I don't drink beers. You have to put something in.
This is like a Tony Robbins Improve Your Life little segment of the show. This is awesome.
America, go home.
Yes.
I mean, if I had the money, it'd be lovely living in Scotland, wouldn't it?
It's a nice place, from what I'm told.
I've talked to people that were from over there that said, you people over here are more Scottish than Scottish people, or Irish than Irish people. He says, you go to Ireland, they don't have crests and coat of arms hanging on their walls. They go to work every day.
Yeah, they definitely don't regard us as Irish. We're American when we get there. And I assume the same is in Scotland and Italy and every place else that Americans travel. Certainly in France, apparently, they don't think much of us.
I think every American should go home and the French should go to hell.
I don't know what's going on over there. The berets are on too tight. I mean, right away, you're missing when you're wearing that silly thing on your head. That's a mistake.
I mean, my mother went to France, and she said, oh, great food, but the people were rude. And then no one wanted to speak English. And I guess she went to Ireland or England as well, and she said, terrible food, but the people were really friendly.
You got that language thing working for you. They're driving on the wrong side of the road over there, though.
Yeah, but I mean, look at, the Irish are famous for their overcooking. Right?
Do you want that well done or well done?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's like you've heard of potatoes au gratin. They make chicken au Schwitz. Everything. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Just throw them all in a pot and cook it up.
I mean, it was just the soda bread.
Hey, off of soda bread. Soda bread's awesome.
Yeah, but if you leave it sit for 10 or 15 minutes, you can put a dent.
Play hockey with it.
Yeah, put a dent in your skull. Bob from Garfield, you're on the air.
Yeah, I heard you guys talking about Jerry Springer, and I'm just flabbergasted that good Democrats everywhere aren't just condemning Jerry Springer and telling him it's no way, because, look, the guy does the black people. I mean, if I was a KKK guy and I wanted to present blacks in the most negative way I could, I would have him on Jerry Springer's show. And then, like the feeble-minded, I don't think Goebbels could have done a better job of presenting feeble-minded people. And these are really all the Democrat constituents. So,
well, I mean, you got to be feeble-minded.
Standard here.
Let's put it this way: if I were in a bad relationship, I'm not going to go on a TV show and talk about it in front of the whole country. You know, if they want to come over to my trailer park, let them. That kind of, you know, the people on there are idiots. And half of the people on there, in fact, I was watching a TV show, the Seinfelders, one of those shows, and I saw an actor on there, and it was Steve. His real name is Victor Scaglini or something like that.
Steve the bald guy?
Yeah, and I thought Steve the bouncer guy on the show. And I thought, you know, I got a really good memory for faces, not for names. But I'm watching and I'm thinking, that guy looks like the same hillbilly guy that was on 2 years ago.
Yeah, well, you're absolutely right.
They're actors.
About the denigration of the Democratic Party with respect to that, and you are 100% right that people should rise up. That's why we were talking about it, because we don't want to be in that cesspool. We really don't, because it's about big issues, getting things done, making the state better, making the country better. And that guy, he wants to make something better, but I don't think it's anything other than his wallet.
His wallet. I mean, it's like, you ever read the Darwin Awards? They come out every year. The Darwin Awards are the people that die in the stupidest fashion every year, and how we're cleansing the gene pool. And the one from last year's winner was a guy who took some sort of a J-2 rocket and put it on the roof of his 66 Chevy or 67 Chevy Impala and had it rigged up so he could pull the fuse on the thing to light it while he was going down the highway. And they said he reached speeds of Mach 3 and would have been insignificant by the time he ran into a wall 150 feet up into the air, and all they found were chunks of steering wheel and a piece of a tooth. And they said it burned the tires off when he tried to hit the brakes as the thing launched, because now that guy deserved to die. He's an idiot.
Yeah, that's proof that intelligent design is like a little bit of a questionable idea, because there's no way that anybody created that knucklehead.
No, I don't know. I mean, maybe he was on Springer. Anything else, Bob?
No, I just think, where's Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson? I mean, they've labeled things racism that there's no way that they could be racism. And then you have like good liberal Democrat Jerry Springer doing, I just think, hideous things to blacks, and nobody calls him a racist. Or
let me tell you this: most of the people I know that are African American or people of color, they don't look at Al Sharpton or Jesse Jackson as a spokesperson for them.
No,
these people are out there. Jesse Jackson's out there as a spokesperson for. I'll tell you after the news. I'll tease that too. A little bit of history on the Rainbow Push Coalition.
And just to your point, there's an awful lot of people who are doing their best to lead in communities and raise people of color up and give them opportunity, and that's what it's about. It's not about headline grabbing.
Absolutely.
Well, you guys have a good evening.
All right, you too, Jesse Jackson.
Excuse me, brother. What we call drugs is 74th Street Baptist Church. We call us sin.
Well, around here, between Normandy and Weston, we call this here a little twin.
Wow. More of your phone calls after these important words and coverage of what in the world's happening on Cleveland's only news radio. Aren't you just so proud it's Cleveland's only news radio, WTAM 1100.
The Big One presents the Kronheim's Furniture Nari Home Improvement Show, January 30th through February 2nd at the IX Center. Step up to the latest trends and the hottest tips in home improvement. Get expert advice from the top people in the business, including Sherry Hiller, Matt Fox, and WTAM 1100's Gary Sullivan. Learn all the how-tos you need to know with non-stop seminars and over 400 exhibits. The Kronheim's Nari Home Improvement Show, January 31st through February 2nd. From Fifth Third Bank, Stanek Windows, The Floor Show Inc., and The Big One. News Radio WTAM 1100. Cleveland.
Around a site in rural San Augustine, Texas.
We've got a lot of ground cover, leaves, pine straw, and all this stuff, so you just got to walk slow and look very carefully, and, you know, that's about the only hope you have of, if there is something out there, of finding it.
This particular search is focused on the Toledo Bend Reservoir at the Texas-Louisiana state line. Underwater teams using cameras, along with aerial teams overhead, are looking for a large piece of wreckage that reportedly fell from the sky Saturday morning. A sheriff here describes the chunk they're looking for as the size of a compact car.
ABC's Tim Sheldon, San Augustine, Texas. NASA says the remains of some, but not all, of the astronauts have been recovered. NASA's learned that a few minutes before Space Shuttle Columbia broke apart, the left side was some 60 degrees hotter than the right side. They don't know why yet. Chuck Sievertson, ABC News.
Ilan Ramon's widow says the Israeli war hero and astronaut was such an optimist he never even wrote a will. Rona Ramon says he thought it was unnecessary. A political leader in Baghdad says Americans should know Iraqis share their sadness over the loss of the shuttle and its 7 astronauts. The Cavs lost to Portland 114-95, and without LeBron James, Akron St. Vincent St. Mary nipped Canton McKinley 63-62. I'm Cliff Bakley on Cleveland's only news radio, WTAM 1100.
Continuing coverage coming up at the top of the hour. Bulletins at 1. News Radio, WTAM 1100. This is Kiss Music.
The music, the moment you own it, you better never let it go.
Music for all people. This is Kiss Music.
Fooled by the rocks that I got. I'm still drinking from the top.
Cleveland's hit music channel. Cleveland's hit music channel. The new 96.5. The new 96.5.
Do you dread spending another winter in that old dreary kitchen? Then bring it to dazzling life again with kitchen refacing from Sears Home Services. Call 1-800-225-7730 for a free design consultation. Call right now and save $750 on select styles. Sears Kitchen Refacing can transform your kitchen without the time, expense, or mess of building all new cabinets. In about 4 to 6 days, your old kitchen can have new elegance with your choice of many decorator styles. And best of all, Sears guarantees your satisfaction or your money back. So call Sears Kitchen Refacing at 1-800-225-7730 and save $750 on select styles. Offer ends January 31st. License number available on request, not available in all areas. Ask your representative for offer details and written warranty. That's Sears Kitchen Refacing. 1-800-225-7730. 1-800-225-7730. That's Sears Kitchen Refacing.
Wills and Coleman in the morning. All the news, weather, traffic, and sports you need to start your day. The Winter Information Station.
Big story of the morning is the cold.
A long list of school closing. Temperatures in the single digits. Wind chills below zero.
Those ramps down there, icy. Newsmaker interviews that blow the lid off the headlines.
Governor Bob Tam.
Talk to me about Medicaid. I thought the tobacco money was going to help with that.
Medicaid is a program out of control in Ohio and every other state.
Wills and Coleman in the morning. Continuing coverage.
2 Marine helicopters have crashed.
What you need to know. Wills and Coleman in the morning on News Radio, WTAM 1100. Rick Gilmore.
Break yourself, fool!
On News Radio, WTAM 1100.
I very well might. Joined in studio by political analyst Tom Harkness. I was going to tell you about Rainbow Push Coalition. And essentially what they do is they just hold companies hostage if you try to get a merger. Rainbow Push will come in and say, well, you don't have enough African Americans, or you don't have enough women, or you don't have enough people of color, and so we're going to hold up the merger. And rumor has it that if you throw money at them, they'll go away. So if you don't have to hire anybody, you just throw enough cash at them, and that's how they go around not preaching.
Look, she bending over. Lord have mercy. The Lord is my shepherd. He know what I want.
Well, yeah, the new slogan is pull out, Jesse, pull out. Jeff, you're on the air.
Good evening, gentlemen. How are you this evening?
Very well, Jeff. How you doing?
Just great.
Okay. I want to talk about the political climate here in the U.S. vis-a-vis the current man who occupies the White House. Although I do find it interesting, and I know you're doing it for humor's sake, the cuts that you're playing. If you pay any attention to the broadcast media, that is TV and movies, you will always see that, for the most part, the minister in the movies are always played as either a womanizer or a buffoon or someone that's not very serious. And as a minister of the gospel, I resent that, but I also know where all that's coming from too. And
well, yeah, look at Jesse Jackson. How many kids does he have?
Yeah,
that aren't
well,
his?
Everybody who puts REV or MIN behind their name is not all have been called either. Some are self-proclaimed, but
excuse me. What church do you minister in?
I minister in a Baptist church.
Excellent.
I'm a reverend. Did you know that?
Okay.
In the Universal Life Church of Modesto, California. You can go online to ulc.com, and for free, they'll make you a minister.
Right,
so
I know that goes back to what I just said a couple moments ago.
I'm also an MD, not medical doctor, media darling.
But what I want to talk about is, as far as the political climate in this country is concerned, I do believe, and I'm not just saying this just because I happen to vote for Al Gore, although that's what somebody's going to call after me and say. I do believe that the time for the Electoral College has come and gone. That was something that was placed because of the misrepresentation that rural areas would have received during the 19th century. And why is it that the highest office in the land is the only office that a person can be elected to without receiving the majority of the popular vote? Heck, even the dog catcher has to get more votes than the person that's running against him, but it's only the presidency, which is the highest office in the land and arguably the most powerful man-held position in the world, is that the only office where you don't have to win the popular vote to get elected. You can just win this electoral college.
Well, I know. It's an interesting point. What do you think, Tom?
Well, I think Jeff, as you say, brings up an interesting point. One man, one vote is pretty close to the heart of our democracy. However, I believe it would take a constitutional amendment to overturn the law that the Electoral College is based on. And I don't know that is the sort of campaign that many people who are involved in politics these days are going to get behind for the very reasons that we were talking about earlier in terms of control, and you're giving it up. If you give away the control of the Electoral College, you're giving away the highest office in the land to the people. And there's an awful lot of people, I'm not one of them, but there's an awful lot of people who believe that
people aren't smart enough to elect.
They're not smart enough to elect their leader, and they've elected the people who are going to elect their leader, and that's the process constitutionally, and that's what we should stick with. It's certainly worth a conversation.
Most people are dumb.
You believe that?
Yeah.
Most people are good, but people are basically good, but basically dumb?
Yeah, most people couldn't find their backside from a hole in the ground, except one's warmer than the other. Most people are dumb. Not people that listen to talk radio.
There's an awful lot of evidence to back you up.
And I've run into so many people. They don't know nothing. If I said Eisenhower, they'd say, what's that? I mean, they don't know nothing. They don't know anything. And especially people that are in, and I'm not painting with a broad brush, but there are people in their early 20s that just, when I watch Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and you get somebody on there that's a 21-year-old, whiz kid in college, maybe he ought to be on Jeopardy if he's that good. But you start getting these questions where it goes back, they're not old enough.
Yeah, there's a dearth. History is not something that people are involved in. I suppose because it's not sexy, it's not flashy to find out where we've been to try and figure out where we're going.
And Henry Ford, I don't believe he said history is bunk. What Henry Ford actually said was, the only history that matters is the history we're making right now.
Yes.
I think that is the quote. Although he's misquoted as saying history's bunk.
And yeah, it's all in context. I mean, that's a man who was being criticized for revolutionizing the way people did business. And there's the context that he's throwing that quote out in. History isn't necessarily bunk, but the way people did business prior to the assembly line was, in his mind, going to be tossed away. And frankly, it was.
Then again, also a little bit of tidbit on Henry Ford. He did not believe in hydraulic brakes. He thought mechanical. I mean, it's a good thing that Henry Ford died when he did, because if he would have lived to be 150, Ford Motor Company would not exist now. He believed in mechanical brakes, which means you step on a pedal and it pushes rods, and the rods, of course, if you slam on the brakes, you might stretch the rods, and now the brakes don't work so good. And he was just all against these sorts of. He didn't believe in overhead valves. He thought that a flathead engine was the only way to go. I mean, his design, it was his way or the highway, and that's that.
Well, and you're going to have imperfect people. It's a good example. That's a man with a great deal of vision who had, in a lot of areas, who had a limited vision in others.
That's right, and his time had come and gone. Don the Cop, you're on the air.
Hi, Gilly. Great to talk to you.
Thanks.
I wanted to tell you about that Jado story you were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Virtually impossible. It's proven that, first of all, the Jado only lasts a few seconds. To be able to reach Mach 3 is...
well, whatever. I don't have the details, but I mean...
Yeah, it would have tore off his ceiling. You'd have to build a cage. The story came from a like Air Force sergeant, like in Utah, back in the 50s or 60s, and you can call the state police down there, and I think they get something like 5 calls a month on that story, and they say it's totally unfounded.
So you're saying it's an urban legend, then, sir?
Yeah, it's a total farce, an urban legend. There's a crew of guys that were on Discovery that actually tried it, and they could only make. I don't even think they broke 200 miles an hour.
So, well, okay, because I was looking in my pile of paperwork I carry around with me, and I thought I saved the Darwin Awards, and so apparently, Darwin Awards aside, that story's just not true.
Well, it'll save me going home and putting a rocket on top of my Explorer tonight.
There you go. All right, well, thanks, Don. Clearing that up. Yeah, well, sometimes stories get perpetuated like that, like the story of the Corvette that somebody died in and that sat in the woods so long that it smelled so badly as they decomposed inside that you couldn't sell it for $50.
Well, and there's a story about the babysitter getting called from inside the house. There's all kinds of them.
How about the other great urban myth and legend about the... This was perpetuated during the Vietnam era, and I remember this very clearly. It was that Johnny went marching off to war and never came home. And his mother just could not stand to look at that car out in the garage anymore that was his favorite, his toy. And so she puts it in the paper as a 1963 Corvair for $500. And somebody comes over and looks at it, and it's actually a Corvette, and they buy it for $500. A great story if you want to go as far as just storytelling, but probably didn't happen. And as far as the Corvette, if I could buy a Corvette for $50 that somebody had rotted away to nothing but a bag of protoplasm in the front seat because it smelled badly, for $50, $500, I'll take my chances. I'll take it and replace the entire interior.
There you go. There's some guys that make money cleaning that.
That's right. They're called cleaners. The people that come in and clean up the mess after, like those horrible messes where I went to rotten.com, and they had a site there where there's some guy, a guy in his 90s, got into a tub in his house, and he had some sort of a weird electric heater wired in that he could heat the water, and he passed away. He was in his 90s, and he just passed away in the tub. And sat there and cooked for a week. And somebody...
That is rotten.com. You are absolutely right.
And it was rotten, too, I'll tell you. And somebody's going to have to clean that mess up.
I would really prefer a cup of cocoa.
Yeah, don't blame you. John, you're on the air.
Yeah, I'll take a cup of cocoa as well.
All right.
Another entertaining and informative show, guys. But I have a bit of a problem, but it's not too serious. But if I did want to leave this country and go home with Sicilian and Bavarian parents, which way do I go?
No, it depends on whether you want spaghetti or chocolate.
Yeah, you want to ski or do you want to hang out and grab oranges?
Yeah.
Oh, I see. All right. Well, I guess I would prefer the oranges, but...
Or you could split the seasons.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, there you go. You could have 2 homes, one in Bavaria and one in Sicily.
Oh, good. Now that's a pretty good deal. Like if there was room in it, Italy, if Trevisano went home too.
Yeah, you could buy a BMW and use it to tow around your Fiat.
It's not that big an island, I don't think.
All right, guys, have a good one.
I already do. Mike, you're on the air.
Hello.
Howdy.
Yeah, I'm a white guy that actually believes that guys like Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton and Ralph Nader and these type of guys, I actually believe that they're good for the American public because they have a voice where none of us really do. And most of the things these guys say, in my opinion, are, they're not wrong. I mean, I think maybe you don't like them personally for the women that Jesse did and the way Al Sharpton was and the way Nader. It's the point being, though, that they're for the poor, for the people that are middle class and lower. And I don't know, I always thought that they had a good voice.
Well, I'll tell you what, I agree 100% on the Ralph Nader concern.
Oh, you don't?
Yeah, I do. I do. I think he split the Democratic vote, which was unfortunate, but the caller hits an absolutely dead-on nail point. The guy has done nothing but advocate for the disenfranchised and people who cannot advocate for themselves. Whether you agree with him or not, that's what his rap is.
Now, here's the problem with people who
Since the Corvair.
People who need to take care of other people. That's what I was going to go back to, the Corvair. As if you flipped over a Corvair and that were built in Germany. And, you know, I mean, if you were in Germany and you're driving an Auto Union, it was an old race car, and it had a tendency that the back end was unemployed, so it didn't have anything to do, like a pickup truck in the winter, so I came around to the front to look for work. Well, if you flip you flip a car over, you flip a Porsche over in Germany, it's driver error. You flip it over here, the car's not safe for Miss Suburban Pincushion who doesn't know how to drive.
Well, when the tendency for the car is to turn over more often than a regular car, for instance, I mentioned, you know, I have an Explorer. Tires were blowing out more often than they should. That is a little bit different, and that was the case with the Corvair. It was unsafe, and he brought facts to the table that said it was unsafe. He was different from people driving fast.
No, I'll debate you on that after you hear these important words on the big one.
Rick Gilmour.
Houston, we have a problem.
On News Radio WTAM 1100.
I was just watching the new Dragnet on TV in the break, thinking, no doubt Jack Webb is spinning over in his grave. I think the entire show of Dragnet, the original run, I think Jack Webb pulled his weapon twice. You know, I mean, he pulled his gun out twice. Because he said most of the work detectives is paperwork and investigation, and it's boring. It's lengthy, and I suppose they have to step it up for the society we live in now. And you know what? I'll bet you this show don't last more than one season.
The gun culture. They got to do it.
Hey, you want to watch a good cop show? Watch Law and Order. You know,
there's a lot of them too.
A lot of Law and Order shows.
A lot of Law and Orders.
Oh, I know. Even on A&E or whatever, they're showing old ones.
You can pretty much find Law and Order on any day of the week at any time.
Joined in studio by political analyst Tom Harkness. We're talking about a little bit of everything tomorrow morning on the big one. Listen to win tickets to see Yao Ming when the Rockets take on the Cavs next week, and hear the very latest on the U.S.-Iraq war with Bob Schieffer from Face the Nation and ABC political analyst Steve Roberts. Wake up informed weekdays 5 until 9 here on the big one. Your triple Doppler forecast from TV3 forecaster Eileen McShay. Tonight, cloudy with a bit of light rain or freeze and drizzle out to the west with a low near 30. Tomorrow, some rain in the afternoon, upper 40s, currently 33 degrees in Cleveland, 33. And we were debating before the break Ralph Nader. And the problem I have with Ralph Nader is that the Corvair was not an inherently unsafe vehicle. I did not think. Yeah, if you take a rear-engine vehicle with swing axles and you start really cranking it through some maneuvers, but like I say, Porsches, Volkswagen Beetles, they were built the same way back then, and nobody was coming out and crying foul about them. And then,
so you think they discontinued the production of them because they have a PR problem, or because it was
actually
good numbers?
I think the Ford Mustang is what ceased production of the Corvair. Something came out that was more powerful and more conventional. And I'll say, you know, I was never a big GM fan, but you got to look at the scope of vehicles that General Motors built, like the Tempest with the rope drive shaft and the transaxle in the back, and the Toronado that came out in '66 as the first front-wheel drive production big car in a long, long time. Nobody can squeeze a nickel like GM, but also could throw around dollar bills and afford to take a chance on something that may work or may not work.
Well, they certainly could then. I don't know if they can anymore.
Well, the downside is that everything that General Motors does, just when they get it perfected, they quit making it. The Corvair went to a four-joint rear axle so that the wheels would go straight up and down instead of having a tendency to tuck under. And, well, I guess sales weren't there. That's why it went away. Look at the Pontiac Fiero. By the time they finally got around to whatever the last year for the Fiero was, but when they got around to it, that was a beautiful car. It really was. I mean, they had the V6, they had this, that, you know, and then they get it all squared away. So I dislike Ralph Nader because I don't like a guy that wears the same suit over and over and has one pair of shoes, and yet the guy's a multimillionaire.
He could definitely use a wardrobe assist.
He's a multimillionaire. Dan, you're on the air.
Hi, Rick.
Howdy.
Yeah, I own 3 Corvairs, and the history of the Corvair, GM actually wanted to axe the car in about '67.
Right.
And that was when they were having all of their court cases on Ralph Nader saying how unsafe the Corvair was. And the GM attorney said if you discontinued the Corvair, it would end up admitting guilt in court. So GM actually ran the Corvair until '69, and every Corvair suit that was brought against General Motors, they won hands down.
Yeah, because the car was not that unsafe.
Yeah, I mean, I've got 3 of them, and I've driven them thousands of miles and had no problems whatsoever.
Now, you would have liked my Corvair. I had a 66 with a Crown conversion kit with a small block Chevy in the back seat.
That had to have been fun to drive around.
Oh, yeah, 12-second quarter miles and 50-50 weight distribution. You could do four-wheel drifts. It was an awesome car.
It's click and clack here.
Yeah, well, Corvairs are great cars. I thought they were great. I thought the engineering was interesting. I liked the way they were built. I liked the earlier ones better than the later ones because I think that they were better constructed. The later ones, a lot of people think are prettier. They have a lot of problems with cross members rotting out in front and that sort of thing. I mean, I could have made a repair kit for Corvairs. How many times on your 3 Corvairs, how many times has the ground gone bad on your gas gauge?
Pardon?
How many times has your gas gauge quit working?
On my 65 and 68, they work great. On my 63 Corvair pickup, when I get down to about a quarter of a tank of gas, I got to be filling up or it's going to, you don't know when it's going to actually run out when it gets down to about a quarter of a tank.
Well, the problem I always had was it was just peg it past full because the ground would go bad. And so the gauge would just look like it was way, way past full and the gauge would just never work. And, well, appreciate you checking in and taking that trip down memory lane. I remember a guy named Jim Battenhouse, works on Corvairs, has a little shop in Fairview. I went to see him one time. It was pouring rain. So I'm standing outside the door of his shop, and I'm getting wetter and wetter, and I'm knocking on the door, and he's not paying any attention to me, and I'm knocking on the door, and he's not paying any attention to me. Finally, he's, come in. I walk in, and he says, what do you want? You're getting my floor all wet. I said, I wouldn't have gotten it wet if he would have opened the door to begin with. I said, can you work on my gas gauge in my car? He says, yeah. I says, well, how much would it cost? He goes, today, $1,000. And I go, why? He goes, because I'm not going outside and laying in the rain to do it. Oh, yeah. More of your phone calls after these important words and coverage of what in the world's happening on Cleveland's only news radio station, WTAM 1100.
The following material may not be suitable for all listeners. Listener discretion is advised.
It appears to be a rerun.
Gilmore Show on News Radio WTAM 1100.
Broadcasting live from the cultural void of Independence, Ohio. Not from Parma, Ohio, which is the center of the universe where all good things emanate from.
Begins and ends.
That's what I've been told. Joined in studio by political analyst Tom Harkness. Taking your phone calls at 578-1100 in the 216 area code or toll free 888-723-WTAM. Pardon me. Bill, you're on the air.
Yeah, hello?
Howdy.
You need to go to bangedup.com.
Oh, I've been to bangedup.com, too. I've been to bangbus.com, too.
Is it worse than rotten.com?
Oh, it's as bad as rotten.com.
This is Bill Liebes here, and when we're at the fire station, we look at that all the time.
When you're sitting around at the fire station?
Yeah.
Where are you on the job?
Did you see the picture where it said, here's your Easter dinner, and it had a dead Chinese baby on a plate?
No, I didn't see that. That sounds disgusting, sir.
That's nasty.
That is pretty nasty, as a matter of fact. That's just darn disgusting. Open phones for this hour. Daryl, you're on the big one.
How you guys doing?
Great.
Great, thanks.
Hi, political analyst. Do you remember a guy by the name of, speaking of stealing elections, do you remember the guy by the name of, he came from Ohio, Hayes?
Wayne Hayes?
Rutherford Hayes.
Oh, Rutherford Hayes.
Yeah, he stole the election from Tilden, right?
Well, you're going back. Hey, sir, you're going back to ancient history there.
Isn't that true?
Well, there's people that say that election, among others, were stolen. The cradle of presidents in the state of Ohio, and Marcus Hanna was running the show. He was the man behind a lot of those guys, and there are people who would agree with you and say that happened. I personally wasn't there, so I can't really speak directly to it.
If you study history, you know Tilden won. And everything was up in the air. He won the electoral. He won the popular vote.
Coming back to the point made earlier,
it was up to the electoral votes. A couple of southern states, right? And actually, Hayes, the Republicans, they actually bought those votes and put them over.
Well, working on that premise, do you think Al Gore?
No, it's fascinating to go back that far in history, but my brain's started to run out of my ears.
It's the same premise that Al Gore would scream about. He said he won the popular vote, and he should have been the president, but the Electoral College was tipped in his favor by the Supreme Court.
I want to run something by you, Tom Harkness, political analyst.
Yes, sir.
Governor Taft says his plan to raise $2.3 billion is a responsible approach to fixing a state budget battered by the poor economy. Do you think so?
He's got to raise money somehow.
I want to know how we got into this mess to begin with, because I'm a firm believer that if we had casino gambling in the state of Ohio, that a lot of money would stay right here.
I agree 100%.
Oh, you do?
I agree 100%. I have absolutely no problem with gambling. However, I think that the Taft's being put into a box by the Republican-controlled Senate and the Republican-controlled House in the state of Ohio. He is not Republican enough, in my opinion, for Larry Householder and Richard Finan and the guys who have run the state of Ohio.
Well, I think if Tim Hagen were in, what he'd say is we have to have $2.3 billion in taxes as well because of what Taft did.
Well, that's the thing. He didn't really do it. He really was at odds with his own party's legislature, party-controlled legislature, for most of his first term.
I'm just wondering why they're so firmly against, and it has to be. I look at the Catholic Church with bingo and that sort of thing, and I look at the Ohio State Lottery. I think the Lottery Commission doesn't like the idea of having some gambling here, and I don't understand why, because people are going to leave the state and go gamble anyway.
People do it. People do it all the time. How many people who are listening right now have been to Las Vegas? How many people have been to Windsor? How many people have been to Niagara Falls?
I know personally people that go to Windsor at least a couple times a year. I know people that go to Vegas a couple times a year. A friend of mine's father went to Vegas, and he says there were so many movers and shakers. They got together and they went to Vegas to see Sinatra. This was back probably late 60s, early 70s. And he says, we lost so much money that collectively, say it was 150 people on the plane that all got a junket together to go out there. He says, we could have bought that plane. That's how much money the movers and shakers lost by going out to Vegas.
Well, that's the argument against it, obviously, is that it affects primarily poor people and it reaches in their pocket and they get carried away. Again, I hate to bring it back to the libertarian argument, but it really is. I mean, this is about vices. If you want to have a vice, it's your prerogative to have a vice.
It's a poor man's tax. The way I look at it, I mean, I play the Super Lotto, a couple bucks here and there. Even people that are millionaires that have won the lottery. They had a couple of guys on TV that had won $5 million and lost it.
If it's a poor man's tax and gambling is going to take money out of poor people's pockets, how is it they only have they don't only have $5 crap tables and $5 blackjack tables? You can go out there and stay at the Bellagio and throw as much money around as you want, and if that was the kind of casino we wanted to put together, then we can do that. If we wanted to put together a ratty one like they have on the river in Indiana, then we can do that, or we could split the difference.
Why don't they just say the state of Ohio says that you should play all casino games responsibly? Well, that's what they say about the lotto.
There's a warning on your lottery ticket. There's a warning on your pack of cigarettes. If you want to toss your money around, that's your prerogative. And if it's going to benefit the state of Ohio, and it's going to keep the coffers full, and it's going to keep kids educated, among other things, and keep your trash being picked up and all the things.
Well, the lottery was, wait a minute. I thought the lottery was supposed to go. All that money was supposed to go to the schools. What they did was they just shifted funds. They had one fund, the general fund, the slush fund, this fund, the rainy day fund. And if you look at the city of Cleveland schools, you know what? It's raining.
Well, they're working hard. They've passed the referendum of the last bill that went through, and the city of Cleveland has really shored up the finances for the schools there. Now, whether or not keeping it under mayoral control and keeping things status quo is going to bring us further out of the morass that they were in, it remains to be seen. I think there are good arguments both sides. I don't think anybody can honestly say.
Here's a good argument. I can say without fear of retribution, because I live in the city of Cleveland, that whether you liked Boss White or not, the garbage always got picked up and the streets always got plowed. That's how Mayor Daley kept getting reelected in Chicago. Picked up I have a problem with streets not being plowed now.
Well, you're paying taxes. That's what. If the bare minimum necessities aren't taken care of, that's when people get bent out of shape.
That's right. And you could be reelected over and over and over. All you have to do is keep picking up the garbage and keep pushing the snow out of the way.
White dug himself into a hole and alienated an awful lot of people with his own personal style, and I think Campbell has a very different personal style, maybe the antithetical one.
Absolutely. I've been at a meeting where Jane was standing in there, and a woman comes up and she just occupied Jane's time. And I was thinking, you'd never get that close to Boss White to be able to occupy his time. His handlers and people would say, back off, step away.
There's no occupying his time.
Yeah, there was no occupying his time, and now he's riding alpacas and llamas.
He's an interesting short little man.
With a small man complex. Napoleonic, no doubt. Hi, you're on the air.
Hello, Rick.
Yeah.
I think that space shuttle was brought down by a terrorist attack.
Now, how could that possibly be? We're talking about 200,000 feet above Earth or whatever. There's no rockets that are going to hit that.
Well, how do we know that an Al-Qaeda operative wasn't aboard the space shuttle to begin with?
Was he hiding under the tiles? Where was he?
No,
Yeah,
maybe one of the crew members was a Al-Qaeda operative. Maybe that Indian woman, she comes from a Muslim country. She's probably a Al-Qaeda member.
Oh, dear God in
Actually, she
heaven.
comes from a Hindu country. India is a Hindu country, and I think that's a little farcical.
Yeah, such a theory I've never heard. Don't you think that it's not even worth addressing, is it? I was going to say, don't you think they do background checks on people that they let go on the shuttle? But then I was thinking of that guy from Backstreet Boys that wanted to go up, and all it took was money.
Well, he didn't go up.
No, he didn't go up. I guess they didn't have the money. It was Russian. He was going to go up.
Well, Russia needs the money. Right? That's a different story from...
Well, that's what worries me the most about Russia, too. Everybody keeps talking about Al-Qaeda and loose nukes. Who's got the most loose nukes out there, and who needs money more than anybody else to feed their people?
That's why we need to be friends with Putin. That's why people that get scared oftener in the détente Cold War mentality are not seeing the evolution of that relationship.
We've got to be friends with Russia and China.
For sure we do.
I mean,
again, a Democrat here, Dick Nixon, lots of reasons why he should have been run out of the White House, does not get credit for opening China. The man opened the door to Red China, and we're benefiting from the value of that hard work now.
Granted, Nixon was a swine. Yeah. But only because, I mean, more swine-like, I guess, is what I'm thinking, is that he got caught. I don't know how many politicians have a trick bag going on or getting some kind of a jackpot, but they don't have it on tape. How dumb is that?
Yeah, I don't know what he was thinking. I think he talked people out of ever saving for posterity everything that happens in the Oval Office for the rest of their...
I think he had this mentality that I think he had such an ego that he wanted to record conversations so he could sit around later and listen to them.
Oh, undoubtedly. It's saving for posterity.
Yeah, sit there and sip gin and feel presidential.
In his library. And he seemed to be... shocked by the concept that people didn't see him for what he was. That people, he was constantly comparing himself to Kennedy, and people didn't see him for what he was. That he was opening Red China, and he was making inroads around the world in a way that other presidents hadn't. But every description of him from an insider seems to describe a very, very paranoid, very, very disturbed man.
Yeah, well, and there's one word I can mention, and then we have to take a little break here. That bothers me the most about Dick Nixon was that we spoke of earlier. One of the dirtiest of the dirtiest. Kissinger.
Yeah.
More of your phone calls after these important words on the big one.
Fans on their feet. The show